Hello and welcome to the United on Wheels podcast. I'm your host, Paul Amadeus Lane. I am so happy to have you on this edition of the show. Why? We're going to be joined by the new CEO and president of the United Spinal Association, Enzo Piscopo. Wow, I can't wait to have my chat with him and find out what we have to look forward to when it comes to the organization and beyond. We're going to hear about his story too. Before we bring him on, I want to remind everyone, please go to unitedspinal.org. Go to our website there. There's so many resources. There are so many things that you should be aware of if you are in business, if you are a member of the disabled community, if you are a family member, if you want to join one of our many chapters throughout the United States, you can do so. Come join us. Be a part of the movement. Be a part of our wonderful organization. All right, without any further delay, let's do this. And I'm so happy to have with me right now a man who needs no introduction. We're talking about the great Vincenzo Piscopo, President and CEO of the United Spinal Association. Mr. President, how are you?
I'm doing excellent, Paul. Thank you so much for inviting me to your show.
Well, Enzo, thank you for allowing me to have this show in conjunction with United Spinal, because I couldn't do it without your blessings. So I really appreciate that, Enzo. And well, first, before we start off, hope you and your family are doing well and staying safe during these very difficult times.
Yeah, thank you, Paul. I hope the same for you.
Appreciate that. Well, Mr. President, welcome. United Spinal Association. You've been president just for a little while, and how's it been going so far?
So far, it has been going amazing, Paul. I mean, this is an amazing organization with a team of people that are so talented and love the mission of United Spinal. So far, I've been blessed to be part of this organization.
So, Enzo, before we get started and talk about some of the great things you have in store for you, United Spinal, why don't you share with us how you got injured?
Yeah, thank you, Paul. My injury was 11 years ago, and it was something that happened completely unexpected, like most of injuries are. I woke up in the morning to go to work, and as I was getting ready, I felt that an awful pain that actually knocked me down, and that was it. I had a herniated disc that ruptured, and when it ruptured, it pressed my spinal cord and created the damage. So I am a T6, T9 complete paraplegic.
And Enzo, what I wanted to talk about next is this happened when you were at CocaCola, and you went from being an able-bodied employee to now a disabled employee. How did you navigate through the challenges and the changes?
Yes, Paul. I mean, for me, that actually was a silver lining, to tell you the truth, because I was at Coca-Cola before I got injured, and then I continued to work for that great company after I got injured. So Coca-Cola was able to see me before my injury and after the injury, and they realized that the person is still the same. So the value that I brought to the organization did not change. Actually, I think they saw that the value actually got increased after my injury. So that was a big teaching for Coca-Cola, but also was a big teaching for me. So there are three things that I learned from that experience, from navigating from not being disabled to being disabled. Is one is the importance of education, right? Because before I was injured, I had not had any interaction or connection. I have not really lived with anybody that had a disability. So I was part of the stigma against people with disability, right? And once I became disabled, I realized how wrong that stigma is. So education become a big priority for me, and not only with my family, with my community, but with the company, on educating that people with disability are just the same people, people that have lives, people that have dreams, people that add and can add value to communities, that add value to our communities, to society, and we just need to learn that so that we are not part of that big stigma. The other thing that I learned was empathy. Not so much empathy for people with disabilities, but empathy to the people at Coke, in the sense that, because I was in their shoes, I was part of that ignorance, for lack of a better word, of not knowing, of not feeling comfortable with people with disability, of not knowing how to treat them, and to an extent thinking that they're less able than the rest of the community. Once I became injured, I realized, wow, I was like that. So I cannot be mad at them because of that. I have to really be in their shoes because I went through that. So basically what I need to do is just breathe in every time that I feel that I'm being a victim of the stigma, and teach them, right? Show them, make them comfortable so they can learn and grow to a place where they are fully inclusive. So the other thing is that I realized how important it is for our communities to understand the value that people with disability bring, because I saw it in myself. Say, well, look, wait a minute. I'm the same person before and after my disability. My brain has not changed. I can deliver the same value. However, people might not think that because I have a disability. So I think it's very, very important that we teach our community the fact that people with disabilities, they bring value to our communities, and they are people like everybody, and we have the same rights as everybody. But not only the same right, is that including us is actually an opportunity for many. When we are more inclusive, everybody really wins.
That is so true. And Enzo, you talked about another aspect of your life, and you mentioned about being married and your children. How did this affect the family? Because here you were, Enzo, up and around, working for CocaCola, but now Enzo, now being a member of the disabled community. And Enzo, you mind sharing that with us, and how your family just kind of rallied around you, and the effect that had on you after your injury?
Yes, Paul, that's interesting because I have 4 kids, and each of them took it differently. But one of the things that I feel that was very empowering for me is the fact that my kids had exactly the same expectations from me that they had before I got injured. And it's funny because at the beginning I felt like, wow, you've been inconsiderate. Don't you see that I'm on a wheelchair? You cannot expect. But then I would say, you know what? Thank you for doing that, because basically my kids are demanding the same thing that they demanded from me before, is because they don't see a change, because they trust me. So I owe it to them, like to deliver as a parent. So I'm so happy that they didn't give me any slack, and that they continued, demanding the same thing that that any kid would demand. I mean, they're very compassionate kids and all that, but they had very clear expectations with me, and they didn't lower the expectations, because they knew that their dad was the same dad, with the only difference that he is on a wheelchair. But one story with that, Paul, is in the same vein, is that my wife was another one that for me was very instrumental on continue having the same expectations and expecting the same from me. Is that I think I mentioned that story to you in another time that we talked. I remember when I was doing my rehabilitation in Shepherd, I was, going through the big depression, the big sadness that we all go through when we experience those traumatic experiences. And I remember I was in my bed crying, and then my wife came to my bed and say, like, bad, hey Enzo, stop it. The things that make us happy are still intact. And that sentence, Paul, was really the sentence that marked the inflection point in the way I recover in my recovery, because basically it made me think and introspectively think about the fact that I can make out of this disability what I want to make. And if I want to continue my life the same way as I did, is on me. There is nothing really that is stopping me to live my life to the fullest. And when I started reflecting on that, and with my wife's help and with my kids' help, we realized that we love traveling. So we will continue traveling, and we did. We love socializing with my friends in my house and restaurants and all that. Well, I still can do that. I love reading. Oh, good news. I still can read. So all the things that I enjoy that made me happy, they were still there. So that really was very energizing for me, and it really opened the doors of possibilities. So just to summarize, Paul, I think the role that my family had was on not lowering expectations, having the same kind of, expecting the same kind of person, but also empowering me to really take it to a different level. And so we all grew as a family, and I think we all became better people. My kids became more aware of what disabilities and of inclusion and in the importance of inclusion, because they saw how much it meant for me and they experienced it themselves. And also it allowed me to really savor, enjoy every single moment in my life, because it was a reminder that, see, nothing has changed. You can still be happier. So now I can, every moment that makes me happy, I really devour it. I really enjoy it. And then it becomes even more pleasant than it normally is.
I love you share that with us, Enzo, because I think this is something that we really don't hear a lot about when it comes to families and persons with disabilities, because we can always share our story, but our family story is dynamic too, because I think there may be many families out there who are struggling, who are not able to come to grips of having a family member who has a disability. And I think stories like yours and others out there can really help bring them some comfort during this time. So thank you so much for sharing that. I remember you and I had a discussion a while back, and you shared with me of the trust that your colleagues at CocaCola had when it came to you after your disability, where I think they sent you on a trip, and at first you were like, should I do this? Should I not do that? Can you mind sharing that with us, please, Enzo?
Yes, sure. And I'll tell you two stories, Paul, that are very interesting in that regard. I remember when I told my manager at Coke that I was ready to go back to the office. And by the way, it was like a month before that, then the doctor wanted me to go. But anyways, I felt ready. I remember my manager, like after we had that conversation, he sent me a long email with all the things he wanted me to do and focus as soon as I got back to the office. And it was like when I read that email, it was like nothing had changed. I mean, he had he's a wonderful manager, and but he had a lot of demands. You make sure that you do this, make sure you focus this, make sure that you finalize this project, make sure. And at the beginning, I thought, man, this guy is on fire. What's up with him? Doesn't he see that I just came back from a traumatic experience? And I stopped myself right there in that thought process, because I thought, you know what? He is trusting you, and you own it. You owe it to him that to deliver and to show that you can do it. If he thinks that you can do it, it's because you can do it. And that for me was like, okay, bring it on. I'm ready. I'm ready. And I went there and I did it. But the other story with that, and that was very empowering, right? Because he did not doubt me. And if he doesn't doubt me, I have no reason to doubt myself. And that brings another topic that we'll talk later, Paul, on the importance of empowering people with disability, right? That's what my manager did at that time. He empowered me. He empowered me with his trust, which I think it was very instrumental for my success. Yeah, and there's another story related to this, Paul, that was very empowering for me. I remember one time, as soon as I came back from rehabilitation at work, that one of my dearest friends and coworker came to me saying, "Hey, listen, Enzo, I have this big project that I'm leading in Dubai, and unfortunately, I'm not able to do it anymore." I used to travel a lot for business, I had to tell you before my injury. And so when I came back, she asked me if I could do that as a favor for her to go to Dubai and manage this big training and run this big training that she was supposed to do. And I remember, Paul, when she asked that question, I had like a fast forwarding movie going on in my brain. Oh my God, going to Dubai, how many hours? I'm going to be in a plane so many hours. How am I going to go to the bathroom? And if I go to Dubai, I mean, is Dubai even accessible? Where the heck is Dubai? I mean, are you crazy, Claudia? And all that was going on in my mind. And I don't know what happened, but the answer that came out of my mouth was, yes, of course I will do that for you. And after I did that, I said, "Oh my God, what did I get myself into?" And but I did. I went to Dubai. We had a couple of weeks of planning and all that, and I went to Dubai. I stayed, and I don't know, it was like a 20-hour, or it felt like a 20-hour plane ride. And I went to Dubai. I got out of the plane. I went to the hotel. I went to the conference. I gave all the training that I was supposed to do. I did some sightseeing. I loved Dubai. I enjoyed, and I came back and it was excellent. So that vote of trust that my dear friend Claudia, my coworker, gave to me was so empowering and so energizing for me, Paul, because it actually showed me that there is nothing that is impossible. And what it did to me was, if I'm able to do this, it means that I can push myself a little bit more. And I tried to do something more challenging. And when I did that little thing more challenging and I was successful, I said, well, if I can do that, let me try this and that. And the big teaching was that, and this is something that I tell all the folks with a disability and without a disability for that matter, it's all in our hands. The sky is the limit. Whatever we want to do, we can do it. You might have to tweak it a little bit on how you get there, but it's all in our power. And that's why I'm so thankful of my boss at Coke, the one that, the boss that I had when I came back right from rehab, and my coworkers, because for them, Paul, the ones that already knew me, I was the same person that came. So for them, fortunately, the wheelchair was invisible. It was not, what was relevant. What it was relevant for them was my heart and my brain, that it was intact.
I love that. Enzo. Having that support group, not only at home with your family, but even in your work with your colleagues, your bosses, and no doubt that made the transition a lot easier. And I'm so happy that not only are you surrounded at home by some wonderful people, but even at your job as well when you were at Coke. And Enzo, when we look at now you being a member of the disabled community, how did you become introduced to United Spinal Association? Talk about that bit, because before you became president and CEO of United Spinal Association, you were an active member.
I found out about United Spinal after I got injured, obviously, because United Spinal it's such an amazing organization that supports people with spinal cord injury and disorders and all that. And I became a member. I started receiving the New Mobility magazine, and I loved it. I always loved the New Mobility magazine, and I loved the organization, but I didn't get very involved because I had a whole other bunch of things that were going on in my life to actually become very involved in the organization. But it wasn't until a few years ago, that at Coke, I started working in community stakeholder relations, community affairs. And as part of my responsibility at Coke, there was the responsibility of managing the philanthropic relationships of the Coca-Cola company with disability organizations, with veterans organizations, and Hispanic organizations. And United Spinal is such an amazing organization that Coca-Cola supports, right? So Coca-Cola supported United Spinal, and because I managed the relationship, I was introduced to United Spinal. And it was funny, and it's incredible the rounds that the world. But I remember when I started that job at Coke a few years ago, that I was handed a portfolio of organizations that Coca-Cola supports in those different spaces, and United Spinal was one of them. So as part of my work and due diligence, I started having conversations with Abby, with Jim, and I became very in love with that organization. And I was very happy that I was able from the Coca-Cola side to support the organization and to increase the support to United Spinal, because I believed that the organization is an organization that is extremely impactful, not only for people with spinal cord injury and disorders, but also for people with disability in general. So it's so, I know, it's such a blessing, but ironic at the same time that here I am 3-4 years later, working for this great organization. And I can tell you, Paul, I'm so happy that things worked the way they worked, and that now I have the opportunity to actually work for United Spinal and continuing with that, such an amazing, powerful mission that this organization has.
So, Enzo, what made you want to basically leave Coca-Cola and now come to the United Spinal Association as CEO? What was the lure to be a part of this fabulous organization?
Hey, that's a nice question, Paul. Thank you so much for asking it. I think all the stars aligned themselves perfectly, right? So it was just the perfect timing. I think one of the things that I have experienced since the time I got injured is that I was extremely fortunate. You know, I was very, very fortunate to have the family that I have, that I worked for such an amazing company for the Coca-Cola, like the Coca-Cola company is. But at the same time, I felt that there are many people around the world that are not as fortunate as I am. So I had that need to pay it forward. And I think United Spinal is going to allow me to actually pay it forward. But also, Paul, I think it's that need of that obsession to leave this world much better than I found it. That is something that my parents always taught me. That's something that I always teach my kids. And I think it's a big responsibility that when I leave this world, I want to feel that I left it much better than what it was when I was born. And then finally, Paul, is because I'm convinced of the huge opportunity that there is for everybody, for our community, for our world, when we empower people with disability and when we empower our community. I think it's a huge opportunity that we have right there, and I want to be part of that seizing of leveraging that great opportunity. And United Spinal came to me, this opportunity came to me at the right moment, when it was the right moment for me to leave Coke. And Paul, I have no words to tell you how excited I am, how thankful I am of this great opportunity. And I'm so looking forward to doing great things with people like you, with people in our community in general.
And so, Enzo, when we look at you, you have a pretty unique perspective as CEO and president of United Spinal Association. What I mean by that is you lived as an able-bodied person, now as a person with a disability, a very active person, and I heard a pretty good tennis player. How do you bring those perspectives to United Spinal?
Paul, first of all, before I answer that question, I need to correct something for the record. I'm not good at tennis, all right? I suck at tennis. And I want to make sure that I brought this up because I don't want any of my teammates hear this and say, good at tennis? He sucks. So, for the record, I love tennis. I enjoy tennis, but I'm a terrible tennis player.
Well, Enzo, at least you look good playing it. Some of the pictures, man, you look like Ivan Lendl, Bjorn Borg. I mean, Federer, Pete Sampras. I mean, that's how smooth you look in those pictures.
Yeah, sure. You know what? We have amazing photographers. That's what it is. But anyway, Paul, thank you for that question. And I'll tell you, one of my biggest focus, and it's like the umbrella focus as a CEO of United Spinal, is going to be on changing the narrative from begging to opportunities. And what that is, Paul, is that people with disability don't need charity. We need opportunities. And when we make sure as a society that we give people with disability the right opportunities, then we shine. But not only we shine, but we allow our communities to shine, we allow the government to shine, we allow corporations to shine. So yes, I mean, giving us opportunities is also the right thing to do because as I always say, this world belongs to us as much as it belongs to everybody else. Therefore, we have the same rights. But more than that, by giving us opportunity, it becomes something that gives corporations, gives community a quantifiable ROI. And Paul, I want to pause here for a second because I really want to make sure that I am as articulated as possible to bring this point across, to land this point. When corporations hire people with disabilities, they win for many, many reasons. One reason is that, people with disability, because we live in a world that was not made for us. This world makes us resilient, makes us perseverant, but also makes us extremely creative. Why? Because, we are in problem-solving mode 24/7, right? Because from the time we wake up in the morning to the time we go to bed, we are in a constant problem-solving mode, right? Because this world, as I said, is not a world that makes it very easy for people with disability. And the silver lining there is that makes our creative muscle very fit because we are exercising it constantly. So when organizations hire people with disability, you are hiring a person that is very creative because it's used to solve problems, to create solutions for problems. And that is a very, very valuable skill for any corporation. And it runs true also for any kind of minorities. Obviously, when you hire the African American community, you're actually making our team, from a creative solving problem perspective, you're allowing to bring a totally different perspective that from the perspective that a white person would have, that an Asian person would have. So all the diversity, what it's doing is bringing to the table different perspectives that make it easier to solve a problem, but increases the possibility of the solution to be more innovative. And that's something that organizations have to continuously, that's something that we really, really have to teach organizations, show organizations, because that allows organizations to be more innovative. And when organizations are more innovative, they're more successful. And that happens in our communities, that happens in our government. So when organizations have a diverse pool, they are more, the nature of the solutions they make and the innovation that they bring to their products, to their culture and all that, it's high. And there is it's higher. And there is a lot of research that shows that. But the other thing, Paul, that is very, very important is the understanding that we bring of the consumers that we represent. And that's something that organizations have to learn, that have to realize, right? So if I'm a person with a disability and you want to reach people with disability, you want to be able to sell your products to people with disabilities, you need to have people with disability in your teams, right? Because they understand the needs of people with disability. They know how to talk to people with disability. They understand the nuances of the life of people with disability. So you will be more successful if you have people with disability in your team, because you will be able to reach that market more successfully. And that happens also with African American, with our Black community. I mean, does it make sense to have a white person developing a product for a Black person? I think it's a mess, right? Because white people will not understand, even if they try, but not for bad reason. It's because that's nature. The people that best understand the needs of the African American community are the African American community. So if you want to reach African Americans, you need to have African Americans in your team. And that's something that happens with people with disability and Asians and all minorities. So that's another thing that is very important that we understand. And that's part of the big change in narrative that I want to make sure that we create. Finally, Paul, as I talk to corporations, is the understanding of corporations of the importance that people with disability are as a consumer base. We are an extremely large consumer base, not only the people with spinal cord injury, but people with disability in general. So there is a purchasing power right there. And it's true. Many people with disability don't have that big of disposable income, but as a group, we are big. And as a group, there is money there to be spent in products. So when you talk to us, you get our money. But if you want to get our money, you have to make sure that you provide the right products and the right messaging. And when you do that, you not only get my loyalty, because people with disability tend to be very loyal to organizations that talk to us, but you get the loyalty of my family, of my community. And I'll give you a quick example, Paul. I went to, and I'm gonna do the play here because I really am proud that they do that. I once went to Target, and Target had a big point of sale material that had a kid on a wheelchair. And that had an impact not only on me, but it had an impact on my daughter. When my daughter saw that, she felt good. She said, well, look at Target. It's actually talking to my dad. It's talking to people like my dad. They deserve our loyalty. She said that. So that's an example, Paul, that if you take the time as an organization to think and talk to people with disability, create products to us. You don't only get the person with disability, but you get you get their family members and their community, and that's gold. So to summarize, as one of the biggest things that I will do, that I'm very focused with the United Spinal is to work together to change that narrative. And to demonstrate that it's not about charity, it's about opportunities for all. But to be able to do that, obviously we have to grow the organization, and so that we can continue providing programs that will empower our members so that they can bring that great value that we bring as a community, to our organization, to corporation, so that selling that selling that message of opportunity versus a charity becomes more evident, and that ROI comes back to all of us.
I love it, Enzo, and no doubt we're looking forward to this. And something that you said that really rung in my ears is like, you want to make sure that there's representation. If you're doing something for one segment of the population, make sure it's representation. And there's a saying, what is it? Nothing about us without us. But I'm going to change that. Nothing for us without us. You know what I mean? So it's like, make us a part of the conversation. And it seems, Enzo, that COVID has kind of accelerated this. And the reason why I say that, now more and more people are working from home. And we as persons with disabilities, we've wanted that opportunity for many years because it's hard for us to get to work because of transportation or the bathroom issue, all these different things that we have to deal with. But because of this pandemic, we're starting to see that people are working from home. Hence, we have more opportunities, not a handout, but more opportunities. And Enzo, where do you think that we can strike a balance with businesses out there as United Spinal Association to have them more businesses to come on board and think about things such as that?
Yeah, it's funny, Paul, that you bring up the COVID and the pandemic to this conversation, because I think the pandemic, with all the harm that it has done to many, many people in our world, there is a little bit of a silver lining. And that, unfortunately, I wish we didn't have to go through this to actually have that silver lining, but it happened and we have it. And that silver lining is precisely about telecommuting, and also about technology, and about inclusion. And I'll tell you what I mean by that. As you said, COVID has normalized working from home. When working from home in the past, in many corporations, still was a taboo, was something that, they didn't like, they didn't support, they didn't appreciate. Right now, what they have realized, that working from home is not a big deal. It doesn't really impact the revenue streams of the organization, the growth of organization. In the contrary, it actually motivates it, right? Because it facilitates for employees to have life-work balance, and then it allows them to become better parents, better employees, and all that, because they have more control, because they are working from home. And that's exactly what people with disability have been claiming for many years. So right now, what COVID is doing is, when you have somebody with a disability asking you to allow you to work from home, it will not be a big deal, right? Because they will say, well, of course, everybody's doing it. Why wouldn't you be able to do it? And I've seen they will say, everybody's working from home and they're bringing a lot of value. So I'm sure you will be able to bring that value when working from home. So that has been positive. And secondly, I think another silver lining, Paul, and I know you will appreciate this, is to bring to a different level the importance of inclusion with technology, right? So, what technology does in general, and COVID has demonstrated it, is that technology capitalizes on the assets of organizations, right? So thanks to Zoom and to Microsoft Teams and to Skype and all that, thanks to that technology, when COVID came, we were ready to face it in a way that was successful. So it becomes very relevant, the importance of investing in technology. So technology for people with disability is extremely, extremely important. When we invest in technology, you are opening the doors for people with disability to be value adding members of society, to have a life that is very successful. So what COVID has done is showing that, when you invest in technology, you open it up for many, many people to live, to work from home and be productive from working from home. And when we invest on technology for people with disability, what you're doing, you're not only creating a technology that is going to facilitate my life or your life, but it's a technology that at the end will facilitate the life of everybody. You see that with voice activated technology, right? That allows you and I and many people with disability have a better life, but it's also giving people that don't have a disability a better life. So it's creating that technology that makes life easier for everybody. So what I feel that this is doing is re-emphasizing the importance of technology in everybody's life, but also re-emphasizing the importance of developing technology with people with disability, because that opens doors for non-disabled people. The other great thing that COVID has brought to us is that it has allowed people with disability in general to have a louder voice. And I say that, Paul, because right now advocates from every corner of the world have access to advocate. And I'll give you a very specific example. In the past, if you really wanted to come to talk to a congressman or a congresswoman, you really had to set up an appointment and go to their offices and do your advocacy. And now they are becoming more flexible, and you can do virtual calls. You can advocate through Skype, through Zoom, through Microsoft Teams. So if I live in Wichita, Kansas, and I don't have access to go and see a health representative because I cannot get out of my house, now that door is being opened to me, and it's been opened to many, many people to actually have a voice in the places that you need a voice. You need your voice to be heard. But also from a training perspective, from a training development, from a development perspective and all that. For example, in the past, there are many people that could not come to the roll on Capitol Hill that United Spinal does. Right now, when we think about doing it virtual, and there is very likely that we will do it virtual this year. We're giving the opportunity to many people across the country to actually have a voice and advocate. We're giving the opportunity to many people that couldn't do it to go to a conference that they would not be able to go otherwise, because of technology is allowing that. And that's an opportunity that people with disability across the country have to seize. That they have to take advantage of that.
I love it, Enzo. Man, you have just given us some valuable information of what we have to look forward to with United Spinal Association and other things. And we really, really appreciate it. Enzo, before I let you go, is there anything else out there you like to share with the members, one listening, one's watching, just about any other things we have to look forward to? I mean, you gave us so much. Anything else?
The first thing that I want to say, and this message is mostly for our community, is that we are all in this together. So we are a very, very strong community. We are a community that can lead, that can move mountains. And I'm very excited to work with each of you to really move those mountains that will make it a better world for all. So that's a big message for all our community. But the other thing that I want to say, Paul, is that to all people with spinal cord injury and disorders is to join United Spinal, join the movement, join us, right? Because there is a lot of value to numbers. The more people that are part of the United Spinal Association, the stronger we are as an organization, the stronger is our voice when we are advocating for people with spinal cord injury and disorder. And also, the easier is for us as an organization to understand the most pressing needs of our community and address them together. And for corporations, I want to invite all corporations that happen to see this podcast to join us, to join us. We want to join you. I want you, corporations, to join us so that together we can fight in this journey of inclusion, because it's not only the right thing for all, but it's a very smart thing for you, corporations, right? Everybody wins, and we can help you leverage that gold mine that the people with disability community bring to corporations. And finally, Paul, next year is going to be a very special year for United Spinal because we celebrate our 75th anniversary. 75 years changing the lives of people with spinal cord injury and disorder. So there is a lot to celebrate. We have an amazing team planning a lot of great things for our community, for corporations and all that, to show how strong and how powerful our community is. So stay tuned, join us, and next year is going to be an amazing year. It's going to be a big celebration for us that is going to be fun and impactful and meaningful for everybody in our community. So stay tuned and you'll see.
I love it. I love it. And Enzo, it's been real great talking to you. And do me a favor, please give your wonderful family a hug from us, for them being there for you, allowing you to do many of the things that you've been able to do, and really being that support, for you, in your career post-injury. And we really appreciate all that they do and all that you do too as well, Enzo. Thank you so much. Great catching up with you.
Paul, thank you so much. And thank you, Paul, for the amazing work that you do for us at United Spinal Association. I mean, we are so lucky and fortunate to have you in our team. And I'm really looking forward to continuing working with you.
It's
Paul,
really,
thank you. And thank you, everybody, for listening.
Yeah, it's really, really my honor and privilege, Enzo. Thanks. Once again, the amazing Enzo Piscopo. Enjoyed my chat with him and looking forward to some great things with United Spinal Association. And it's really an honor for me to be a part of that great organization, the TAG group that I'm a part of, the host of United on Wheels and other things that I'm able to do with the organization. It's really like a dream come true with me. When I got injured 27 years ago, I heard of the United Spinal Association, but I had no idea that I would be a part of it. It's pretty awesome. Remember, you can be a part of it too. Go to unitedspinal.org, find out some of the great things that we have to offer, the resources, and just keeping you up to date when it comes to the many issues that affect our communities and caregivers too. Make sure you check that out, and family members. All right, until next time, talk to you later.